Well, welcome everybody. This is the very first podcast of the Rizolve Partners Group. And my name is Steve Cummings. I'm the managing partner of Rizolve Partners. And one of my first guests today is a sales acceleration expert who works very closely with us at Rizolve. And his name is Bob Cariglia. Bob, welcome.
Hey, Steve. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Well, given that Bob has a long history in sales and marketing and performs an advisory role at Rizolve for our clients with that speciality. So, Bob, one of the things that I have a few questions for you, and one of the things I'd like to start with is, one of our advisory groups recently did a questionnaire survey to many of its clients, over 20,000 clients. And they did, within the survey, one of the results found that the number one CEO objective in many private companies is to grow revenue and sales. So with that as and the statistic there was more than 62% of CEOs had that as their number one objective. So if that's the case, the first question I've got for you is, should that be their number one objective?
That's a great question, Steve. And of course, you're talking to a lifelong salesperson here. So of course, I'm going to speak in the positive on that. But in my history and my experience, if a company's not growing, it's shrinking. There's no in between. There's no being on hold and coasting. So to me, a CEO who is driving growth in his or her company is really on the right path, because it creates a lot of excitement, it creates a lot of energy, it creates a lot of innovation in the company. And if you're looking to develop value, those are all really positive attributes that you want to have happening in your organization. So I would be surprised if I met a CEO who was saying that's not what we're going to do. So yeah, I'm all in favor. I mean, I'm not surprised that is the number one expectation of a CEO is to grow, is to pursue growth.
Okay, so if that's the case, then, and we'll accept that as a valid proposition, what would you say are the basic conditions that need to be in place to successfully grow a company?
So the first thing that you've got to have is you've got to have a plan. Call it a forecast, call it a financial plan, call it a strategic plan. You've got to have a plan that says over the next 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, this is what we want to achieve. There's that old saying that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And in this case, having a plan says we need from a sales or revenue perspective, we need to go from where we're at to this point. That then gives the sales organization some direction. And they now can say, okay, we now know where the company is going. Here is where we as a sales organization needs to go. We've got to play our part. So that's number one. Number two is you've got to take that plan and you've got to take a look at your organization. You've got to take a look at the products that you sell. You got to take a look at the caliber of your marketing, and you've got to make sure all of that is in place so that you've got the tools in place to meet that plan. And really specifically, you then need to transfer that plan into individual objectives. If you've got a team of 10, every one of those people on your team need to know what part they play in achieving that plan over what period of time. And then the final part of it is you've got to have a measuring tool, whether it's a customer relationship management tool, a CRM, or some other tool, to be able to track what is your team doing, are they on target, and have regular meetings to ensure that you're coaching them to make sure that they do meet those objectives that you've laid down for them.
Okay, very interesting. So, but with that answer, you focused mostly on the sales department. Are there other areas of the business or things that need to be in place that are maybe not immediately obvious in order to be to have a successful growth outcome?
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good question. So, think about it. If the company objective is to grow revenue by 20%, whatever that company's product or service is, the number one criteria that you've got to make sure is in place is, can you deliver on increased growth of 20%? If you're selling hard goods that are being produced on an assembly line, can your assembly line expand, or can you add additional shifts so that you can actually produce and deliver on that 20% of those products? If it's a service organization, do you have the right personnel in place so that you can deliver on that 20%? If you're a software company, can your software expand to accommodate 20% more users? Do you have the right support organization so that when those phone calls start coming in asking questions about your software, do you have that in place? So the ability to deliver is super important, because on the sales side, you may achieve the 20%, but if you aren't able to deliver as an organization, that will be not only a short-term increase in your sales, it'll ultimately be detrimental, because you're going to disappoint people. That word is going to get around, and ultimately it'll be very difficult to regain that momentum that you're striving for.
Okay, thank you for that, Bob. So many CEOs listening to this podcast will have experienced difficulties with growth. So it is a great line to success. Are there any unintended consequences that you have seen over the years to growth that people should be mindful of?
Yeah, I can give you a couple of examples. Above and beyond outrunning your ability to deliver, growth creates stress in an organization, because as you have the revenue coming in the front door, as a company is growing, you're going to put a strain on your organization overall. People are going to be under stress to deliver. People are going to be under stress to meet those objectives. So that's one of the unintended consequences, is you're going to add more stress to the organization. Another bit of stress is, how are you pursuing that growth? If you're pursuing a cost or a price cutting strategy to achieve that growth, that's great. But the unintended consequences of that is you may never be able to regain your original price position because you've cut your costs. Now you become known in the industry as a low cost provider of that service or that product, and it's very difficult to turn that around. So that can be an unintended consequence. So you increase the revenue, but you hurt your gross margin line because you've cut your costs. Those are two that I can think of off the top of my head. A third, could be, you've got to add additional resources to your organization to accommodate that growth. Is your HR department and are your HR processes, sufficient to accommodate bringing on additional people? Because there could be a time lag. People have to be onboarded. People have to be trained. Is that going to cause an interruption in your ability to deliver that growth? Those are all potentially the unintended consequences that a company might face in the near term.
And finally, Bob, all of the things we've heard today are very interesting and would be to many CEOs. If someone was interested in hearing from you further, what would you advise as the next steps to embarking on a growth plan?
Yeah, I think if somebody wanted to learn more about how to go, move in the right direction, and achieve the growth, the best thing is to have a face-to-face meeting or a virtual face-to-face meeting, so that we can understand more about what the company is looking to do. What are you trying to achieve? Over what time frame are you trying to achieve it? We can ask some of those pointed questions with regard to, is your organization ready to take on that growth? We can find out what are the underlying circumstances as to why you want to drive that growth. And then what we can do is we can basically give you on that call some good advice as to how to pursue it. And if some of what we're saying makes sense, then we can take it to the next step, which would be, a more formal engagement, a discovery call, and that's where we could continue the conversation and move forward to help you achieve your business goals.
Well, thank you, Bob. Everybody, you've been listening to Bob Cariglia. He's the sales acceleration, sales and marketing expert at Rizolve Partners. If you'd like to hear more, you can visit our website, www.rizolve.ca. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Have a great afternoon. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.